Welcome to another episode on our channel. So we're doing something different with our figures. We're putting them on a rotating base at the very beginning and then transferring to something I have more control over so we can pause when I need to pause and talk about something specific on the figure. The other thing I wanted to do is to go back and redo some of the earlier videos that I've done with my husband because frankly, they just suck and I want to do them over again. So the first episode that was ever done was on Western Twins. So I had two of these in the same black dress, the same hat, same head sculpt, same body. The only thing that was different was what adorned the figure. One had silver adornments and the other had were antique bronze adornments, and this one has the antique brown adornments. So she wasn't originally designed to represent someone, but her head sculpt actually is not too far off from Annie Oakley. So I'm going to talk about Annie Oakley because she's probably one of the most interesting female Western individuals who has lived in the United States. She was born in Ohio in 1860, and her original name was Phoebe Ann Mosey. Some sources say Moses, but I bet it was Mosey. She was often called Annie, and that's the name that stuck the most, Annie. And later on in life, she went by a stage name of Annie Oakley for the Buffalo Bill Wild West show. She was a very, very good hunter. Her first kill was of a squirrel at the age of 8. It was a perfect headshot. And even though I love squirrels, I take solace in the fact that it didn't suffer. So, and back then, that was their livelihood, hunting and farming, that sort of thing. She made a lot of money at hunting and selling meat. She was really good at it, and sources indicate that she was able to pay off her parents' mortgage of the family farm with all the proceedings from hunting that she had saved up over the course of time. She paid it off all in one payment. Somewhere along the line, she entered a contest, a shooting contest, which amazed me because women were probably still treated as, history indicates, as second-class citizens. I mean, we just got the right to vote in 1920, which isn't that long ago in terms of the United States history. So back then, her entering a shooting contest at the age of 15 just didn't seem logical, but maybe it was a close-knit community and everybody knew everybody, and so they let her enter. She ended up winning. The person who came in second, his name was Frank Butler. He got 24 out of 25 targets. She got 25 out of 25. They married about a year later when she was 16 and had no children, but stayed together for the rest of their lives. She died in 1926 at the age of 66 to pernicious anemia. So sorry. And he died 18 days later. He stopped eating, but the cause was attributed to senility. So maybe she was taking care of him during the end of her life, but died first. And then he died 18 days later. He was 10 years older than she. They had no children, but they were close to nephews and nieces and that sort of thing. She joined Buffalo Bill's Wild West show and was the main draw for that show. Both her and her husband, Frank, they did sharpshooting in the show. Later on, he just managed her. and she was one of the star attractions to the show. She could shoot coins out of the air, split playing cards in half at 30 paces. She could shoot cigars out of the mouths of people, and her most famous target was her husband, or maybe the most likely volunteer was her husband. Uh, and he survived that entire process, so she never missed, apparently. Or never missed in terms of hitting the person who had the cigar in their mouth or cigarette. So she was really good at what she did. She could even shoot backwards with using a mirror to help her target things behind her. So she was really, really, really good. She was friends with Sitting Bull, who had joined the Buffalo Bills Wild West show for a period of time. She said she had the utmost respect for him and considered him to be an adored friend. So they were close. Apparently, during the Spanish-American War, she volunteered to train 50 women to be sharpshooters, but was turned down. In retrospect, they should have taken her up on it. I bet she would have trained some darn good sharpshooters, herself being one of them. So she lived a rich life. And even though she died at 66, back then, I'm sure it was a hard life. And it wasn't uncommon for people not to live as long as people do today. So with that, we'll pause and get her on a turn tray so that I can talk a little bit more about what she has on her. We'll be right back. So here she is. She has a 3D resin hat that was printed by my husband, and it was painted black. Looks great on her. The dress came from eBay, didn't pay very much for it. I don't know, $12, $14, something like that. The body is not TB League, but that's okay because all her joints are covered with arm sleeves or wristbands or what have you. The wristbands are unique in that they're the top pieces of boots, so they have like buckles on them. But I thought that would look good with the belt, the adornment of the belt with the necklace pieces and bead pieces that I glued onto a leather piece of a bangle. Bangles are like bracelets that are made of leather. So I took a piece of leather from that and made a belt. And then I just put these adornments on. And they kind of line up, like I said, with the bracelet very nicely. So that is good. She has fingerless gloves. And the hair, the buckle, the adornments, everything just seems to flow effortlessly together. The boots are high heel boots. And I don't think Annie Oakley would have worn high heel boots in the sense of them being on these really thin pegs. But this head sculpt isn't too far off from Annie Oakley, other than having straight hair and not being as long as Annie Oakley had her hair. So I think it's a pretty good match, actually. So we'll pause and get tighter close-ups of her so you can see more details. We'll be right back. So you can see more details now. Perhaps the top of the boots here as bracelets or wrist bracelets. More details can be seen along, definitely with the belt. You can see more details here. I'll just go side to side so that you can see her a bit better. This is one of the first customs that I showed. I mean, it is the first one. And like I said, it really sucked. So I really want to do these over again. So she looks great. We'll get a close-up now of the head sculpt and call it a day. Let's just go side to side. I think she came out really nice, just as a Western female cowgirl, but her facial features are not far off from Annie Oakley. So that's an added contribution here. There you go. I have to share a few more things because I started reading more about Annie Oakley, and it was just fascinating to read what I read. She, despite being small in stature, 5 feet tall, she left a big footprint on this earth. She taught over 15,000 women how to shoot, thinking it was very important for them to be able to defend themselves. That's quite remarkable in and of itself. In terms of the Buffalo Bill Wild West show, she was the highest paid performer, second only to Buffalo Bill himself. She was quite the draw, pun intended, to that particular show. Eventually, the show made its way to Europe, and but I should back up a second before I go into that story. She not only was good friends with Sitting Bull, but he symbolically had so much respect for her. He symbolically adopted her, calling her Little Sure Shot, because she was sure to make the shot. And that's what happened in Europe. When the Buffalo Bill Wild West show toured in Europe, she met Wilhelm Kaiser II, and he asked her to shoot the ashes off the cigarette he was holding, and she was successful in doing that. Now, later on, she would reflect about the experience after, World War I had happened. And I have to read this because it's just part of history, and it kind of made me sad, and yet I smiled at the end of this particular writing. It's so poignant. She reflected, if I had shot the Kaiser, I might have saved the lives of several millions of soldiers. I didn't know then that he would swing the iron fist and shake the universe. Perhaps it was well for both of us that humans lack foresight. According to Butler, her husband, he sat down and wrote a letter to the Kaiser Wilhelm saying that Annie Oakley wanted to repeat the shot. The Kaiser never replied. Anyway, poignant, made me smile at the end. I hope you've liked what you've seen. If you have, consider giving us a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel. In the meantime, everyone, please have a great day.